Never a fee for history. That's what my friend Dr. Steve Hill says when you asked him to monetize his life's work. Let's tune in now to learn more.
Welcome to Discover Statesville, the show that takes you on a captivating journey through the heart of one of North Carolina's most charming towns.
Welcome back to Discover Statesville. Today we are joined with Stamey Holland and Steve Hill. We're going to talk about the Statesville Historical Collection and the exciting new location here in downtown Statesville.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you here with us today.
So, Steve, I guess let's start with you, and if you can just kind of give us the maybe brief history of the Statesville Historical Collection, kind of how you got into this and when you started and where it's gone from there.
Okay. Well, the Statesville Historical Collection, I guess, is about as old as I am, so it's not going to be brief. But but the more recent history of the collection, when I retired back in 2009, I went to our mayor, who just happened to be Mayor Costi Kutteh back then. And I said, Costi, I know you can't, it's hard to visualize this, but I think I have enough material for a local history museum dedicated to Statesville and Iredell County history. He said, okay. And I said, I would like to find a building somewhere in town where I can pull all, it's been in storage for many years, where I could pull it out and put it up on the walls and invite people to come in and look at it. So Costi said, well, my friend Bill Stiles has an old building over across from Black Pontiac back then. It's Black GMC now, I guess. But used to be the balloon factory where hot air balloons were made. Said, I think Bill will let you set up in there. And he did. He was very gracious. And so for a year, I set up my little display in there, and I invited friends and family and whoever wanted to come in to look at the display. Well, after about a year, that building sold. So again, Costi went to Mayor Tomlin and DSDC and talked to them about the old Army-Navy store building there on South Center Street, 212 South Center Street, that had just been vacated. So they graciously allowed me to set up in there. And I was there for 5 or 6 years, and it came up for sale, so I figured it's probably a good time to move. And then the Gordon family, another gracious family, came and said, hey, come down and use our old furniture store. Stay as long as you want. You can stay forever if you want to. And the Gordon family, the whole family welcomed me. They helped me. They helped me move, helped me set up. They paid the utilities. They did it all. And they were just so kind. And I didn't think I would ever find another person or another family as loving and as thoughtful as the Gordon family, but I have. Then I ran into Stamey. Stamey, a fellow named Jimmy Wilson, was always coming into the collection. He would always ask me, what's going to happen with all this stuff when you're gone? And I would
That's not a question you want to hear.
And I would always
plan ahead.
I would always say, well, that's going to be up to Dr. Poston. Dr. Poston was always there with me every day. And at the time, he was like 95 to 100. And I always said, Dr. Poston's in charge of that when I'm gone. Of course, it would bring a good chuckle, especially from Dr. Poston. But unfortunately, Dr. Poston passed around his 100th birthday. But and Jimmy came back in one day and said, again, what are you going to do with this stuff? And I said, well, just so happened that my wife, Penny, and I, we've just been to the lawyer's office, and we did our will. And my will says that the Statesville Historical Collection will go to either the city of Statesville or the county of Iredell, whichever one will take it and take care of it and use it. Well, Jimmy said, oh, no, that ain't going to happen, as Jimmy could say it. We're going to do better than that. And he said, what if I provide some seed money and we find you a large location, large enough that you can get all of your collection? He said, what's the largest thing you have? And I said, well, the largest thing I have is the paddy wagon from the Statesville Police Department in 1961. He said, all right. He said, we got to find a building where you can get a paddy wagon in through the door. So but he got the ball rolling. He went and visited. We talked about buildings, and he said, "What if you had your choice? What would be the best building in Statesville for a local history museum?" Although I don't call it a museum. And I said, "Well, gosh, the most historic property in Statesville is old lot number 30, the Holland Building. It was the first business in town. It was the first house in town. It was Patrick Huey's Tavern when Statesville was just a crossroads town, even back in the 1700s. It was site of the largest hotel between probably Winston-Salem and, I don't know, Atlanta at one time.
I knew I liked that.
A 3-story, it burned down though.
I know. Yeah, but all things happen for a reason,
beautiful,
right?
Yeah. If it hadn't, I don't know what we'd be talking about.
Right.
But yeah, so it was the center. Is literally the center of social activity in the Statesville for many years. And then Stamey's great grandfather, Charles Holland, from Olin, North Carolina, came down. He bought the hotel and ran it until it burned down in 1918. And the Holland family has owned that property since, I guess, 1903, right?
Yeah.
And
Always reinvesting in it too and making it something new.
and
new
they
better,
built
right?
the current building, the Holland Building that's there now, that housed a huge department store, and then it housed a Woolworth department store, and most recently Westmoreland Antiques for many years, 20-some years. And now, if you haven't walked by and looked in the window, I encourage everybody to do that, because Stamey has literally turned it into a showplace for downtown Statesville.
Yeah. Yeah, I have been very, very impressed with what you guys are doing there. And first, I want to say, Stamey, it's such a pleasure to finally have the opportunity to meet you. And if I don't want to forget to say it at the end, but the investment that your family, that you are making to bring that building back to all its glory, and then give it the opportunity to house such an amazing collection like what Dr. Hill has made his life's work is commendable. And I personally want to thank you as a business owner and someone who lives here in Statesville. I want to thank you for what you're doing and bringing this for Statesville. I think it's pretty amazing. Would you be willing to share a little bit of why the historic collection in the building and why you're making this personal investment to bring the building to where you're bringing it today? Would you be able to share that with our listeners?
Well, like Steve said, Jim Wilson sort of got the ball rolling on this, and he came to me and said that he'd like to be able to put Steve in there and give him a permanent home. And I've always been interested in history, and the Holland family's been here for a long time. A lot of it in Olin rather than Statesville, but still.
It's Statesville to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Horse and buggy days. It was a little different, though. But anyway, the town's been good to my family, and I've always hadn't spent much time over there, but you can't go into Steve's seat, be around his collection and not just be fascinated with everything he's got.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And I just thought if I was ever going to do something for Statesville, this would probably be the best thing.
Yeah. Well,
Very cool.
It's a very cool thing. There's more happening with the building, though, right? There's some plans for upstairs and maybe downstairs. Are there any things that you can share as the building as a whole, not just the main floor where the historic collection is going to be, potential office space opportunity, or have you guys not decided all that yet?
We're probably going to be doing some office space on the second floor.
We need it. I've been looking for 30 days for an office space and can't find one. We desperately need it.
So with the new space, I've obviously went in 212 and in the most recent space that you've been in. With the new space, the larger space, are you able to kind of display everything that you have in the historical collection now?
I'll be able to get most of the things that are displayable. In the collection, there are a lot of things that you just don't want out in, first of all, the light, because light damages documents and it fades photographs and things like that. And also, you don't want a lot of hands flipping through like historical documents. There's probably, tens of thousands of historical documents. There's probably 250,000 or 500,000 photo negatives that have not been looked at, and
It's like some CIA stuff.
it really is. I mean, I'll never live long enough to look through all those negatives, but
Microfilm.
they are from the Elbert and Van Ammon studio back from the 1930s to the 1950s. Just about everybody in Statesville had their photos taken there, their portraits. During World War II, the soldiers would, when they came back from basic training and got ready to go across the ocean to war, they would stop there and have their portraits taken in their uniform. So we have all those. And fortunately, Ms. Ammon very delicately wrote the names of every family on it. So we have all the names with all the photographs.
Wow.
And it's literally hundreds of thousands of negatives.
So
Three pallets.
who
of
started
negatives.
this charge? Like, who started collecting and preserving all these things? Was this something that you started, or was it something you kind of took up the mantle from someone that had initially?
As a kid, I just loved my community and was fascinated with history. I had some great history teachers in school and at Mitchell College, and I was always been a collector, starting with rocks and postage stamps like most kids and coins. But by the time I started driving, I started focusing on local history, like like documents and photographs and signs and just anything old related to my hometown that I love so much. And it just kind of grew from there.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I was going to say, you mentioned when you retired and then moving forward from there, but maybe talk about what you retired from. You were an educator in our
educator.
school systems.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important that you and your wife Penny both worked in the school system.
She's my high school principal.
Oh, was she?
Yep.
Yeah. So Richard grew up going to every one of your spaces, probably on his
guarantee.
field trips
I guarantee.
Potentially,
and
yeah.
his children now. But tell us, because when you're talking about, for someone listening to the podcast, when you're talking about each time you move this collection, I mean, you're not talking about you loaded up the back of your trunk. I mean, this is like you have stuff in tractor trailers, right? Like, talk about the breadth of maybe even this move and how large the collection is. And then I'd also like to touch on, like I kicked off the show by saying never a fee for history.
Yeah.
And you've always told me that our community and the residents in our community have given you and trusted you with this, so you are not going to monetize or make money on their history.
Yeah.
So I'd like to touch on that a little bit.
Okay. Well, I have so many people who come to me and say, these are the treasured photographs from my family. I'm not going to be around much longer. Will you take them for me? And I've had so many people to come in and donate stuff and then die like just a few months later. So I'm obligated to take care of all of these things, and I've always promised when people donated things that I would never make a profit off of this. This is definitely not a profit-making venture, trust me.
Nobody's getting a big salary, huh?
Nobody's getting a salary, and other than rent help that I've had over the years, that's the monetary part I've had.
That's protected.
and that's
protected.
very appreciated, very much appreciated. But yeah, and I believe, and people say, why don't you charge to come in? I can't charge for our history. I mean, our history is so important. I don't want people to not come because they can't afford $5 or whatever you would charge to come in. So it's going to be free. It's free, and it's going to be free as long as I'm around, and I hope after that. And because that's the way it should be. You know, if you want to pay. And the trade-off is it's not really a museum because I don't have the fancy, slick, signage and things like that inside. I have homemade things that have been done on computer and taken to Walgreens and printed.
I think they look pretty good. Give yourself some credit. They look pretty good.
So it's not a museum, and not everything's labeled like it needs to be. I need to spend about a year just going through and labeling all the photographs. But fortunately, I have most of them categorized and labeled in my computer, so I can go back and look and see what is what. And so never a fee. I could never charge people to come in. And the question before that was
The breadth of the size of the collection.
How much stuff? How much stuff you got?
Maybe like Stamey, what's the size of that floor, that first floor? I mean, it's going to be full, and Steve's not even sure everything can fit. I mean, it's a very nice. How many square feet is?
11,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
Most of the displayable stuff will be up there. When I moved from the balloon factory, a family in North Iredell kindly donated the use of a tractor trailer, how many feet tractor trailer units are, and I filled it up and still had stuff in the basement, storage buildings, but
No big fancy moving company.
But now everything is in the basement of the Holland Building, and it's it's a mess because we just kind of put it in there as quickly as we could, and but as we pull things out and reset it, we can clean everything up really nice. And the upstairs is so beautiful. I feel a little bit guilty about putting some of that stuff up there. Some of it's kind of rough around the edges, but we're going to try to clean it up. And
Yeah.
So you will have at least initially have some things on display on the second floor as well.
No.
Oh no, just the main floor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the second floor is just as beautiful. And
Oh yeah, I've been up there.
we'll make
It's
some
really-
nice
yeah.
offices or whatever Stamey
beautiful.
decides to do with it. It won't be empty.
No.
I'm confident in that. So when do you anticipate? You guys have been doing a lot of work in the building, or Stamey has, and GL Wilson has beautiful plans that I see there in the window. When do you anticipate? We won't hold you to it, but like when will you be opening your doors again to the public?
Stamey and Tom Wilson and Julie and all the GL Wilson team, they have been so good to make sure everything is done just right. I mean, they're not cutting corners on anything. If you stand outside and look in the front windows and see the beautiful in the window cases there, the beautiful lights, they could have replaced those with neon lights, but Stamey has gone the extra mile and gotten beautiful antique light fixtures that are really going to just set off the whole thing. And Steve Bell at GL Wilson, his genius as a designer and architect, has taken that space and created lots of wall space for photographs, and it's going to be open and airy, but yet it's going to be full eventually, and things will be categorized. The little cubicles will be have themes like military themed here. We're going to have a hot air balloon corner with.
I don't have that for the hot air balloon capital of the East.
Yeah, Christy Darling and her team, they're working on that.
Christine and Charles are amazing, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. They
Now,
really
is there going to be a section? I mean, are we going to? Stamey, has your family been able to preserve a lot of the history of the building and stuff? Are we going to be able to kind of walk through the history of the Holland Building itself in the collection?
I think Steve's got more than I do.
that's going to be the first thing that hits you in the face when you come in, the history of the Holland Building, because
Good.
it's so fascinating.
Sure.
Yeah.
It is such a great place. I was just telling Stamey outside here, today, this is August 29th, 106 years ago today, 3 famous men walked into the Stamey's grandfather's hotel. They had just come in from Asheville. They were dusty from the ride, and they went in and they got a drink of water or maybe something stronger, I don't know, because there was a bar in there. But they went to the candy. There's a candy shop, candy kitchen in there. They bought chocolate bars, and they walked around the streets of Statesville eating chocolate bars. Those 3 men were Henry Ford, Harvey Firestone, and Thomas Edison. So when you walk into the Holland Building, you're standing on the building that replaced that building, but you can basically stand on the site of where 3 famous men stood and ate their chocolate bars before strolling around Statesville.
Wow.
So to me, that's pretty. And there are just all kinds of stories like that. Telling Stamey the first female barber in town cut hair in the barbershop there in the hotel. That was literally our first shopping center, the hotel, We had, and I keep a running tally of all the businesses that have been in there. It's been a saloon, it's been a liquor store, it's been a general store, clothing store, hat shop, several grocery stores, barbershop, music studio, telegraph office, telephone office, restaurants. It was the closest thing we had to a hospital for many years. Lots of surgeries were done in there. Doctors would put ads in the paper, and they would come from Winston-Salem and Charlotte and see their patients, ride the train in, see their patients, and then ride back home at night. Interestingly, just shortly after Henry Harvey and Thomas Edison, spent their time there at the hotel and bought their candy at the candy kitchen. The candy kitchen caught on fire and burned down the whole darn hotel. So they were some of the last customers.
Glad they moved on before that happened. Yeah. And so all these great things that have been in the Holland Building, and I just, I'll be remiss to not say, and then the rest is history.
Absolutely. And it's free.
Or opportunity.
It's free history.
Yeah, there you go. So you're thinking beginning of 2025?
I'm
comfortable
thinking,
with that, maybe?
Yeah.
But like I said, we won't hold you to it. But we're very excited to get in there and be able to see, well, like Richard was asking, is the whole collection. I mean, where you've been previously, not even half the collections fit, right? Yeah. So you may have rotated in some stuff, but I don't think anyone's seen everything that you've spent your life work.
Well, and the coolest part to me, I think is like you touched on earlier. It's all so compelling and interesting. You might look and think, maybe I don't have any interest in going in there. But you go in there, and there's a whole lot more to this community than most people realize. And there's something in there that you're going to find interesting.
I promise. That's what I tell people. You'll find something in here that'll strike your interest, whether it's sports, ballooning, civil rights. We're going to have a civil rights section. So
more to come on that.
Yeah, it's really an amazing space. I can't wait to see what it looks like now that you get to pull more things out of your bag of tricks there.
Well, Steve, I know I said thank you to Stamey, but your life's work is very impressive, and I feel very blessed to call you my friend.
Well, thank you. I consider it an honor to be your friend and Richard's friend.
Thank you.
And I can't reiterate enough. These things, our history would be packed away in a warehouse, if not for lots of people like you guys who love their community. Stamey loves his community. All the others, I mean, there are lots of us out there.
Yeah.
And it's always refreshing to know that there are people who love this community as much as we do.
Right. And to wrap up, because you kind of talked a little bit about your plans in your will, and I hope you never go anywhere, but you have solidified that, right? So now sorry, city. I'm gonna pull that back. I'm gonna change my will. Now it'll go to Preservation Statesville, which is a nonprofit that Jimmy Wilson wanted to make sure that everything was set up and in place and preserved.
And poor Jimmy, he died shortly after that. He was such a dreamer. I mean, if it weren't for Jimmy, my dream was like, maybe I can get this stuff out of storage someday. But Jimmy's dream was, let's put it at the most visible, most historic place in town, and let's let the people see it. So he's and Stamey's a big dreamer too. That between the dreams of those two guys, my dreams are just nothing.
Well, thank you, Jimmy Wilson, because I know you're smiling down on us, and
Stamey,
I know he's going to be super proud.
I tell Stamey I have to pinch myself every time I walk in the building to say, is this true? It's like a dream. And I don't know whether to laugh or cry, and sometimes I do both. But it's very emotional. But
that's okay. We can't.
Thank you, Stamey.
Yeah, crazy to think how far it's come. Since you started. That's amazing.
We can't wait to see it come to life, and are so thankful for people like you, Stamey, your family, the Holland family, the Wilson family, for loving our community so much and wanting to invest in it, reinvest in it, and preserve it. It's important, and we want to celebrate that. So, Statesville Historical Collection, the address of the new collection when it opens is?
117 South Center.
Yeah, and you can come. You do have some stuff in the windows. You can see some drawings and some of the things that are happening. And And it'll have regular hours when it opens?
Yeah, we'll have extended hours.
Okay.
I think it's so important now to make sure, and I'm going to have some volunteers for that. I need
Right.
some volunteers to help me staff and man the place.
So Meredith and our team had the distinct pleasure of sitting down with you. We had some summer interns this summer who were thrilled to hear everything you
they
had
were
to
great.
share. So not only did we record this podcast, but Meredith Collins has written an amazing story. Couldn't fit it all into one story, but a story about the collection and kind of a longer version of how Dr. Hill got where we are today and the Holland family's involvement. So please, in the description section of this podcast, take a time to click on the link and read the whole story. And if you're interested, get involved. Like Steve just said, it's going to need volunteers to make all this happen. And we appreciate you guys. We appreciate you being such a crucial part of, I haven't said this in a long time, Richard, but the patchwork that makes up our amazing home called Statesville. So the Statesville Historic Collection. We invite you to discover Statesville, everyone. Thank you. Till next week.
Thank you for joining Discover Statesville. You can email us at discover@statesvillenc.com. Check us out on Facebook at Discover Statesville NC, #Discover Statesville, and our website, statesvillenc.com. Catch us next week as we continue on our journey to uncover the hidden gems, culinary adventures, entertainment, and to be inspired and enlightened as we discover Statesville.